It started with a mistake, but ended up being the most serendipitous travel experience of my life. Have you ever had one of those moments where a seeming inconvenience turns into something magical? Well, buckle up, because I'm about to take you on a journey that proves sometimes the best adventures happen when plans go awry. This is the story of how a hotel overbooking led to not just a luxury upgrade, but an unexpected connection that would change the course of my vacation entirely. I had been planning this getaway for months. After a grueling year at work with back-to-back projects and barely any time to breathe, I desperately needed an escape. I chose Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, a destination known for its stunning beaches, vibrant culture, and LGBTQ+ friendly atmosphere. The photos online promised paradise, golden sands meeting crystal blue waters, colorful streets lined with art and music, and a nightlife scene that welcomed everyone with open arms. I booked what seemed like a decent mid-range hotel, nothing fancy but comfortable enough for my budget. All I wanted was a place to crash between beach days and exploring the local scene. My flight landed in the early evening, the air thick with humidity and possibility. The taxi ride from the airport gave me my first glimpse of the town, palm trees swaying against a sunset backdrop, locals and tourists mingling in the streets, the scent of street food wafting through my open window. I felt the tension in my shoulders already beginning to melt away. This was exactly what I needed. But when I arrived at the hotel, the relaxed feeling quickly evaporated. The receptionist, a young man with an apologetic smile, informed me that there had been a booking error. The hotel was overbooked, and my standard room was no longer available. My heart sank. After months of planning and a long day of travel, the last thing I wanted was to scramble for new accommodations in an unfamiliar city as darkness fell. "I'm so sorry for the inconvenience, sir," he said, typing furiously on his computer. "But we do have a solution, if you're willing to accept it." I braced myself for the worst. Perhaps they would send me to their sister property across town, or offer a downgraded room with a partial refund. What came next, however, was beyond anything I could have anticipated. "We'd like to offer you our penthouse suite as compensation for the inconvenience," he said, a slight twinkle in his eye. "It's normally 3 times the price of your booked room, but we'll honor your original rate." I stood there, mouth slightly agape, wondering if I'd misheard him. A penthouse? For the price of my standard room? This had to be some kind of joke. But the receptionist was already reaching for a special key card from a drawer behind the counter, explaining that the suite featured panoramic ocean views, a private terrace, fully stocked bar, and the crown jewel, a luxury jacuzzi overlooking the bay. Let me explain why this upgrade was so significant. I have been saving for months just to afford this modest vacation. Luxury accommodations were completely outside my budget, a world I glimpsed only through social media posts of more affluent travelers. The idea that I would suddenly have access to this level of opulence felt like winning a lottery I hadn't even entered. As the elevator climbed to the top floor, my excitement built with each passing number on the digital display. The doors opened directly into the suite, and I audibly gasped. Floor-to-ceiling windows revealed the coastline stretching into the distance, city lights beginning to twinkle as dusk settled over Puerto Vallarta. The space was massive, an open-concept living area with designer furniture, a dining section that could comfortably seat 8, and a kitchen that looked more equipped than the one in my apartment back home. But it was the master bedroom that truly took my breath away. A king-sized bed faced the ocean view. Ambient lighting created a warm glow throughout the space, and through a set of sliding glass doors, I could see it, the jacuzzi, situated on a private section of the terrace. Steam rising gently from its surface against the darkening sky. I spent the first hour just wandering around the suite, opening cabinets, testing light switches, and repeatedly walking onto the terrace to convince myself this was real. I even called my best friend back home, giving her a virtual tour while she screamed with excitement on the other end of the line. "You have to use the jacuzzi tonight," she insisted. "With a view like that? It would be criminal not to." She was right, of course. After unpacking my modest suitcase, my clothes looking somewhat out of place in the luxurious walk-in closet, I changed into my swim shorts and prepared to experience what would undoubtedly be the highlight of the suite. I found a control panel on the wall that dimmed the terrace lights and activated the jacuzzi. The gentle hum of the motor and bubbling water created an instant atmosphere of relaxation. Stepping into the hot, bubbling water was like entering another dimension. The temperature was perfect, hot enough to release the tension in my travel-weary muscles, but not so hot that it was uncomfortable. I leaned back against the contoured seating, looking out at the panoramic view of the bay. Boats bobbed gently in the marina below, their lights reflecting on the dark water. The distant sound of music from beachfront restaurants floated up on the evening breeze. I closed my eyes and let out a deep sigh. This was bliss. I must have been so caught up in the moment that I didn't hear the elevator arrive. It wasn't until I heard a surprised, "Oh," that I realized I wasn't alone anymore. I opened my eyes and turned toward the sound. Standing by the open elevator doors was perhaps the most handsome man I'd seen in months. Tall, with dark hair styled in a casual sweep, wearing linen pants and an unbuttoned tropical shirt that revealed a glimpse of toned chest. "I'm so sorry," he said, his accent hinting at European origins, Spanish, perhaps, or Italian. "There must be some mistake. I was told this was my suite." He had a keycard in his hand identical to mine, confusion evident on his face. I explained the situation, how I'd been upgraded due to overbooking, as I awkwardly remained in the jacuzzi, suddenly very aware of my exposed chest and the fact that I was essentially meeting a stranger while half-naked in a hot tub. He ran his hand through his hair, looking equally uncomfortable. "This is embarrassing." The front desk told me the same thing, that they were overbooked and were upgrading me to the Penthouse. I guess they double-booked the solution to their overbooking problem. We both laughed at the absurdity of the situation. His name was Marco, he told me, an Italian photographer on assignment to capture images of Puerto Vallarta for a travel magazine. He'd been traveling for weeks and had been looking forward to the luxury of a private suite after a string of basic accommodations. "I should go back down and sort this out," he said, turning toward the elevator. But something made me stop him. "Wait," I called out. "This place is huge. There are 2 bedrooms, and honestly, it seems a shame for either of us to give up this view." I gestured to the panorama before us. "Unless you're uncomfortable with sharing, of course." Marco hesitated, looking around at the expansive suite. "You wouldn't mind? We're complete strangers." I shrugged, the warm water rippling around my shoulders. "We're both victims of the same hotel mix-up. And look at this place. It's bigger than my entire apartment. We could stay here for days and barely cross paths if we wanted to." A smile slowly spread across his face. "Well, when you put it that way." He set his camera bag down on one of the plush sofas. "And that jacuzzi does look inviting after a long day of shooting." "The water's perfect," I confirmed, trying to sound casual while my heart inexplicably raced. "There's plenty of room." Marco disappeared into the second bedroom with his suitcase, and I used the moment alone to question what I was doing. Had I really just invited a complete stranger to share not only the suite but the jacuzzi I was currently sitting in? This wasn't like me at all. I was usually cautious, planned, reserved. Yet something about this entire situation felt like it existed outside the boundaries of my normal life. Perhaps that was the magic of travel, the permission it gives us to step outside ourselves, to say yes to experiences we might otherwise decline. When Marco returned in his swim shorts, 2 glasses of champagne in hand from the complimentary bottle chilling in the suite's refrigerator, I knew I'd made the right choice. "I figured we should toast to the hotel's incompetence," he said, carefully stepping into the jacuzzi and handing me a glass. "Without it, we wouldn't be enjoying this view." The champagne was crisp and perfectly chilled, tiny bubbles rising in the glass mirroring the larger ones surrounding us in the water. As we clinked glasses, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. What had been an awkward encounter was transforming into something that felt surprisingly comfortable, even exciting. Our conversation flowed as easily as the champagne. Marco told me about his photography career, how he'd started shooting landscapes but found his passion in capturing the essence of destinations, the people, the food, the hidden corners tourists often missed. I shared stories from my job in graphic design, the projects that fulfilled me and the ones that had driven me to the brink of burnout, necessitating this vacation. "So you create virtual worlds, and I capture the real one," he observed, refilling our glasses from the bottle he'd placed within arm's reach. "We're not so different, you and I." The jacuzzi bubbles continued their rhythmic churning around us, but they weren't the only thing rising in that hot tub. With each shared story, each laugh, each moment our eyes held contact a beat longer than necessary, the tension between us grew. It wasn't just physical attraction, though that was undeniably present. It was the rare connection that sometimes happens between travelers, the accelerated intimacy that occurs when you meet someone outside the context of your regular life, where you're free to be a version of yourself unburdened by history or expectation. As the night progressed, we moved closer in the jacuzzi, initially under the pretense of better hearing each other over the bubbling water. But soon our knees were touching, then our shoulders, and the conversation began to include longer pauses filled with meaningful glances. "I should probably ask," Marco said during one such pause, his voice lower than before, if I'm reading this situation correctly. Because if I'm not, I'm making a complete fool of myself, and we still have to share this suite for the next few days. The honesty of his question made me smile. If you're wondering whether I'm feeling the same attraction you are, then yes, you're reading the situation perfectly. The relief on his face was palpable, followed quickly by a more confident smile than I'd seen from him yet. Good. I was worried all this champagne had given me the wrong impression. The champagne might be helping, I admitted, but I was intrigued from the moment you stepped off that elevator. Marco's hand found mine underwater, our fingers intertwining as naturally as if we'd done this 100 times before. Then perhaps we should thank the hotel staff for their mistake, he murmured, leaning closer. It seems they played matchmaker without even knowing it. Our first kiss tasted of champagne and possibility, the warm water swirling around us as the lights of Puerto Vallarta twinkled below. What had started as a frustrating travel hiccup had transformed into something I couldn't have planned if I tried, a connection that felt both thrilling and somehow inevitable. We eventually moved from the jacuzzi to the terrace loungers, wrapped in the plush robes provided by the hotel, continuing our conversation under the stars. Marco showed me some of his photography on his digital camera, images that revealed not just his technical skill but his unique perspective, the way he could capture the soul of a place in a single frame. I found myself sharing thoughts and feelings I rarely voiced, even to close friends, about my creative ambitions and the parts of my life that felt unfulfilled. That's why travel is so important, Marco said, his hand casually playing with my damp hair. It reminds us that our everyday problems are just one small part of a much bigger world. It gives us perspective. And sometimes it gives us unexpected encounters in jacuzzis, I added with a smile. As the night deepened, our conversation turned to more practical matters, how we would navigate sharing the suite, our plans for the coming days. Without explicitly planning it, we began merging our separate itineraries. Marco needed to photograph certain locations for his assignment. I wanted to experience the local culture and relax on the beaches. We discovered our interests complemented each other perfectly. I could explore alongside him, experiencing authentic aspects of Puerto Vallarta I might have missed as a typical tourist, while providing company and a fresh perspective for his work. When we finally retreated to our separate bedrooms in the early hours of the morning, I lay awake replaying the evening in my mind. How strange that just hours ago, I had been disappointed about a hotel booking error. Now, that very mistake had led to what promised to be a completely transformed vacation experience, and perhaps something more significant than just a vacation fling. The following days unfolded like scenes from a film I never expected to star in. Mornings began with coffee on the terrace, planning the day's adventures while watching the sun sparkle on the bay below. We explored hidden beaches accessible only by boat, where Marco photographed the pristine shorelines while I swam in waters so clear I could see fish darting between my feet. We wandered through the cobblestone streets of the Zona Romantica, stopping at family-owned restaurants where Marco's fluent Spanish and charming personality earned us recommendations for dishes that weren't on any menu. Each evening, we returned to our penthouse sanctuary, sometimes with local ingredients to cook dinner together in the gourmet kitchen, other times simply collapsing onto the sofa to share stories of what we'd observed that day. And always, we ended the night in the jacuzzi, the bubbling water becoming our ritual space for deeper conversations and growing physical intimacy. By the third night, we'd stopped using the second bedroom altogether. What made this unexpected romance so special wasn't just the obvious chemistry between us or the luxurious setting. It was the unique context that travel provides, the way it suspends ordinary life and creates a space where connections can form without the complications of everyday routines and responsibilities. We were seeing each other clearly, without the filters and facades people often construct in their regular lives. On our last night in the penthouse, we sat in the jacuzzi watching a spectacular electrical storm over the ocean, lightning illuminating the clouds in brilliant flashes while we remained warm and protected in our bubbling oasis. It was a metaphor for what we'd found together, excitement and intensity, but also unexpected safety. I don't want this to end tomorrow, Marco admitted, voicing the thought I'd been avoiding all day. This week has been. I don't even have the words. And I'm supposed to be good with words for my photo captions. I leaned my head against his shoulder, watching another lightning bolt split the distant sky. I know. I keep thinking about going back to my regular life, and it feels like putting on clothes that no longer fit. Then maybe we don't have to end it completely, he suggested, turning to face me. My next assignment is in Costa Rica, but after that, I have 3 weeks before I need to be in New York. And flights from your city to Milan aren't so expensive if you book in advance. We spent that final night making plans that extended beyond our Puerto Vallarta bubble, tentative at first, then with growing enthusiasm as we realized neither of us wanted this connection to be just a vacation memory. We exchanged contacts in every possible format, set dates for video calls, and researched flight options to each other's home cities. As we checked out the following morning, I made a point of thanking the receptionist, the same young man who had originally given me the news of the overbooking. That mistake with the reservations? I told him. Best thing that could have happened. He looked confused but pleased. I'm glad it worked out, sir. Did you enjoy the penthouse amenities? Marco and I exchanged a private smile. The jacuzzi was particularly memorable, I replied, feeling Marco's hand slip into mine. This experience taught me something profound about travel and about life. Sometimes the most meaningful connections happen when plans fall apart. The hotel's overbooking, what should have been an inconvenience, created the space for something magical to unfold. Had everything gone according to plan, I would have stayed in my original room, and Marco in his. We might have passed each other in the lobby without a second glance, each experiencing a completely different version of Puerto Vallarta. Instead, we shared not just a suite, but a week of adventures that changed us both. And as we parted at the airport with promises to reunite soon, I realized that the true luxury of that penthouse wasn't the panoramic views or the private jacuzzi. It was the reminder that life's most beautiful moments often arise from its unexpected detours. For anyone listening who has experienced travel disappointments, the canceled flights, the lost reservations, the weather that doesn't cooperate with your carefully planned itinerary, I offer this story as evidence that sometimes these mishaps are actually redirecting you toward experiences far better than what you had planned. The next time travel plans go awry, perhaps instead of frustration, you might feel a flutter of anticipation. After all, you never know when a booking error might lead you to your own penthouse encounter, where the jacuzzi bubbles aren't the only things rising. And if you find yourself in Puerto Vallarta, staying in a certain penthouse suite with a jacuzzi overlooking the bay, take a moment to toast the hotel's reservation system. Its glitches have been known to create a different kind of magic than the one advertised in the brochure, the kind that sometimes lasts long after checkout. As for Marco and me, that's a story still being written, across different countries and time zones. But it began with a simple truth that continues to guide my travels and my life. Sometimes, the best adventures are the ones you never planned for. Total_char_count, 18,764.